Thanks for joining me on the Peace and Parenting podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Hi, welcome back to the Peace and Parenting podcast. I'm Michelle, and I want to read a review from iTunes. The title is Absolutely Life-Changing. I discovered this podcast a few weeks ago and started listening from the beginning. I already knew a lot about gentle parenting and thought I'd just be listening for fun. Little did I know how much I'd learn. I take time every day while cooking dinner to listen to an episode, and it's the best self-care I could ask for as it helps me go into the nighttime routine with such strength and confidence. I feel such a shift in my relationship with my kids in only a few short weeks. It's really all about connection. Thank you, Peace and Parenting, for all you do. Oh my goodness, thank you. Thank you. That's so sweet. I'm so glad it's had an impact on you and your sweet family, and I hope you're still listening. Thank you to everybody who's out there listening. I really do appreciate it. All right. We talk about natural consequences, and I was having this thought about natural consequences that, natural consequences, somebody said to me well, there's no natural consequence for this thing. Can't remember what it was. It was if you don't do X, Y, or Z, then they just don't do it, but there's no natural consequence. And I think we're looking for pain. Unfortunately, that sounds bad, but it's so true. We're looking for our child to endure some sort of pain or some sort of upset, right? If you don't do your homework, then you're not going to get the points. Not that we want our kids to be in pain, but we think, oh, okay, that is very obvious and concrete, right? And I want them to experience the loss of the points so that they can learn the lesson around the homework. Now, this can be for all kinds of things, right? When it's obvious what the natural consequence is. But is the loss of the points for the homework, is that actually the natural consequence? Or is the natural consequence the feeling that the child feels because they lost the points? That's what I believe the natural consequence is. So what does the child feel when they don't get the points? They might feel shame. They might feel unworthiness. They might feel embarrassment. They might just feel sadness. Who knows? But they're going to have a feeling around it. Even if they don't say it, even if they don't express or even if they express the opposite, oh, I don't care about my points. Well, I don't care about school. I don't know. Maybe. But it pings them somewhere, right? There's a feeling in there somewhere. Nobody wants to go to school and do badly. Really, they don't. And maybe they don't care about the homework too much, but there's a feeling in there of some sort. And maybe the feeling isn't the feeling that we want them to get to because we want them to learn. But not every experience is going to teach in every lesson perfectly. And maybe they'll have to miss 4 or 5 assignments for some kids. And maybe they'll have to fail the class for other kids because they need to really sink into that natural consequence. But again, I don't think the natural consequence is the points. I don't believe the points matter so much as the internal feeling that matters. The shame, the embarrassment, the feeling of failure, the feeling of whatever it is inside of us. That becomes the natural consequence. And that natural consequence, that feeling, only really comes to fruition if we, the parent, can hold the space for that feeling. What I mean by that is that, I get a lot of criticism oh, well, this is just a hands-off parenting. Oh, you don't care about the grades and the homework. And so you're just hands-off. What about the teachers? They're never going to. So you have these kids you're sending to school and nobody cares about anything. Hold on a minute. When we say we don't care about the grades, we don't place importance on them, but we care about our children, right? And we care about their experience. So if your child doesn't turn in the assignment and they don't get the points, and then they come home and they say, oh, I didn't get the points because I didn't turn in the assignment. You're like, well, I told you had to turn in the assignment. I told you, we said Friday night you were going to do it. You didn't do it. I told you to do it and you didn't do it. Or I asked you if you wanted to do it and you said no, so you didn't turn it in. What does that do? What does that judgment do? What does that I told you so do? What does it do to the natural consequence? What does it do to the child? What does it do to your relationship? Now, conventional parenting might do that. Not everybody, but many conventionally people who can parent conventionally might do that, right? I told you you're supposed to do your homework because I'm trying to teach them a lesson, right? I got to tell them, I have to tell you, you were supposed to do it. I gave you an opportunity to do it and you didn't. I asked you to do it and you didn't because I have to teach them a lesson around it because I am the teacher and I have to teach you all the things. If you don't know all the things, then you might go into the real world and not understand all the things, and then you might fail. I think connected parenting is different. And it might not even mimic gentle parenting in this way, is that we supply a lot of empathy when a child messes up. And we do not add in our judgment and our shame and our reprimand and anything else that could feel negative. Why? Because we want the natural consequence to sink into the body. We want it to feel the way it needs to feel. We want the internal mechanisms to ignite and take hold and do the natural learning and the natural teaching, because we are not the teacher. We are not in charge of teaching our child everything. We are the coach. We're the supportive person, and we hold our kids in high esteem and we embrace them, but we do not keep them from failing. And we do not coddle them from the failure, but we also do not stick it to them, so to speak. We do not grind on them when they do have the failure. We apply empathy. Oh, you didn't get the point. Oh, that's tough. How are you feeling about that? I'm mad, Mom. I didn't get the points. I know you didn't. Wow. What you gonna do? Well, I don't know. They said they could turn it in late. Well, that might be a good idea. Turn it in late. Hi, you want help with that? You're neutral. You're supportive. You're not saying anything about how you feel about it. It's not your point. They're not your points. It's not your class. It's not your homework. Not your circus. Not your monkey. It's your child's. Let them deal with it. Let them sink into their natural consequence. But without the empathy, you might mess up that process and not let them get to the feeling. So back to these comments in Instagram or wherever else, like Facebook, I think too, it's there's no natural consequence, so they're not going to learn. We're so worried about our kids learning everything right now in this moment. Every instance has to be, you made a mistake, you have to learn. And I think that comes from this idea of punishments, right? It's, they did something wrong. I'm going to give them the punishment. Then that will teach them and then they won't do it again, which is all false. False. That is not the process. That is not how we learn things. That is not how we get good relationships with people. Who wants to live with their punisher? Who wants to live with their warden? Who wants to live with the person that's constantly looking for things that they did wrong and saying, oh, I'm going to assign a punishment. And even when we do it punishment light, right? Oh, well, I'm going to have a long talk with them. Oh, well, you know what? This was a real big misstep here. You didn't turn in your work. And so, Daddy and I don't have any other choice, but we're going to have to tell you that you're not going to be able to go with your friends tomorrow. It's like the gentle punishment, right? It's the, I'm going to do it very kindly and very nicely, but I'm going to have a long talk about it. I'm going to give you this sweet lecture, but I'm still going to punish you. And it's almost patronizing. So you might not punish like your parents did 20 years ago. Like, that's it. No play dates for the rest of the week. You're grounded, whatever it is. But a lot of people will tell me online, well, I have a discussion. I tell them, this is the way it's going to be. And we can't behave in these ways. And this is the punishment. And you've known what the punishment's going to be because I've told you what it's going to be. And so, but it's all the same, ladies and gentlemen. That is the same as what my parents did. It's just punishment light or, conventional parenting light. I'm going to explain the things away. I'm going to lecture you to death. It'd make you feel bad about it. So yeah, there might not be a, 3D physical natural consequence for everything our child does. However, there's an internal repercussion that happens when our child makes a mistake. Just think about yourself. Let's say you said something unkind to your friend and you knew it was unkind and you're like, oh, because you know right away. I said something in a meeting the other day. I didn't hold enough space for somebody. And I felt so bad afterwards. And I beat myself up about it. I was like, oh, I should have held more space. I cut her off. I wasn't the best coach, right? Because I'm also a coach. I coach my kids and now I got to coach parents too. And I didn't hold enough space for this sweet woman in this meeting. And I should have. And I've known her a long time and she's in my VIP. And I cut her off because I had a thought and I had a thing and it was all about me, right? I wasn't necessarily trying to teach her a lesson, but I was trying to point out, maybe I was trying to teach her a lesson, right? Let's think about this. I was trying to point something out. It wasn't my job to do that. And I should have held space for her because I want her to, get there. But at the same time, I wasn't honoring the process. And when I came back home or I got off the Zoom to reflect, I knew I did something wrong. I knew. And it started hurting my heart in there. And so I knew what was wrong. And I didn't need anybody to point it out to me. I didn't need anybody to shame me or punish me or tell me. And, maybe as an adult, if they did, I would be able to take it. But it's hard to take it even as an adult. I knew myself. I got to remorse. I got to guilt. I got to shame. And I reached out to her and said, I am so sorry I cut you off. I just realized I cut you off. I am so sorry. That was not my intention. I should have been more mindful. And I apologized. And I got to apology, right? Because I got to my own internal shame and my own internal upset. And just like our kids, we might not know and recognize and be able to see the learning that's going on. They might tell us just the opposite thing, like, oh, no, I don't care about it. I don't care about my friend. No, I was mean to them. I don't care. But do they really think that? And is it okay if they think that right now in this moment? And will they internalize later and say, oh, okay, I understand. You guys just had a hard moment. And when you can hold space like that and you can be neutral like that, your child will get to their own natural learning. And that's what we want, because that natural learning, that what I learned the other day in that meeting was so much more effective and potent than somebody telling me. And it came with no shame. And it came with my own self. I knew, and our kids know, but they're smart people. They're smart beings. We have to trust them. We have to trust in natural learning. Now, does natural learning mean you take your hands off of parenting altogether and you just say, oh, it's a free for all, it's laissez-faire, like, oh, we're just going to do whatever we want? No, people, we notice this. Oh, this kid is having a little failure here. Oh, it's sticky here. Oh, they were mean to their friend. Oh, they didn't do their homework. And we come with empathy, and empathy is a very connective property, right? It connects us because it helps a child feel or a person feel seen. When I give empathy to parents in my meetings, it's like they lick it up because they've never had it. These sweet people. So many of them have never had empathy. I think I was that way. I never had empathy. But when we get that empathy and we're living an empathic life, when something happens like that, we learn our lessons so much better, I believe. I know my kids do. I know I do. When you can live an empathic life, now you have empathy for all the people around you. So if you've had parents that are empathic and you've felt empathy and you know what it's like, then you can recognize when other people need it or want it or desire it, or, it becomes part of the way in which you interact with folks. Empathy wasn't in my repertoire growing up at all. Nobody was empathic. And so when I first went to therapy and my therapist was giving me empathy, I was like, whoa, I'm sorry, what did you say? Did you say that you understand how I feel? And I would just cry because I was like, oh my gosh, somebody understands. A paid stranger understands how I feel, and I'm feeling heard and seen and understood for the first time in my life at 20. So empathy is a powerful, powerful tool. And it is so connective. And it's why therapy works so well. And it's why it's part of connective parenting. And we don't want to over empathize like, oh my God, how are you? Like, no, it's like, hey, I understand. This is hard. I'm right here. Strong empathy, sturdy empathy, supportive empathy. And that's what we do when the kid doesn't do their homework. Oh man, yeah, this was tough. What you gonna do? Pia has a I'm now talking about ceramics. Again, I don't know if you're following me all well. If you're a religious listener, then you're going to be like, oh my gosh, can she please stop talking about ceramics? Well, she's doing better, but she still has some missing assignments, and her teacher's retiring. I think the combination of like this teacher is on her way out and Pia is Pia, but she's turning the assignments in, but the teacher sent another email saying, we're still have these 2 missing assignments. I said, P, here's the email I got. And she was like, oh, yeah, I know. And I'm like, okay, just making you aware. Let me know if I can help you in any way. No, I got it. I was like, okay, I know this is hard. I get it. High school's hard. Ceramics sounds like it's super annoying. I get it. I'm sorry. Just that little tiny bit of empathy for her, not the, so sugary, sweet empathy, but just empathic, like, hey, I get you. It helped her relax. And then she's like, I really don't like the teacher, Mom. She's so annoying. She's not really nice. And she gave me a referral for my uniform. And I said, she did. Why? And she's like, my jeans weren't the right color. And I was like, well, you're lucky your uniform is jeans. I didn't say that, but I was thinking that. And I said, oh my gosh, that sucks. Did you talk to her? She's like, no, I don't want it. I've never had a referral before. And who cares? But I'm just saying the empathy allowed us to open up, allow her to open up. And that's what we want. We want the natural learning to occur. We want our kids to go internally, not externally. And we want to be the coach and the supportive person. Do we take our hands off the steering wheel? No, we do not. But we make sure we're steering with them and following their lead and coming to their aid when they need and being supportive. I hope this helps with natural consequences. I know I feel like I talk about the same stuff all the time, but I hope that this broadens your awareness around it. Thanks for joining me on the Peace and Parenting podcast. If you can leave a review, I'd be so, so grateful. And I hope to see you guys next time.